You're listening to Thoughtful Discussions with Josh Snyder, and I have a couple of people with me, of course. My co-host, Corey Ochai.
How you guys doing, man? We are back, baby. Yes. Hello.
We're at the 1028 Podcast Studio, and thank you for having us here, Corey.
Oh, we're not here alone, though. We are not here alone today.
We are not. And I have a very special guest with me who started, when I first had my my journey as an entrepreneur with this printing business, PGH Print Ship, which at the time it's been a few different names, but within the first probably 24 customers, our friend here was added to the name on that list, and so he's been supportive all along the way with his many different ventures. And so without further ado, we are here with
Alex Avakian. What's going on, guys?
What's up, Alex? How you doing, brother?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
Doing good. I think this is going to be a good opportunity for us to learn more of each other. I know a little bit about you and your journey, but I think it's a real interesting one. And before we started, you was talking about you don't know much about me either, so we're going to get a chance to to talk that talk, man. You know what I mean? Learn a little something.
The journey has certainly not been what I would have thought. You know, like when I was in high school, I would have never ever guessed that I would do what I do now.
Yeah, but would you, even 5 years ago, you could probably say the same thing, though.
Yeah, 5 years ago, I never would have thought I'd run two construction companies.
Yeah, and how about 5 years from now, we're going to be saying the same exact thing.
Right.
I would not be surprised.
It's part of the journey, man, and I think that's the beautiful thing, man. As we never finished where we started.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? And that's when you're running the race. You never finish the race where you started it. So I think it's going to be dope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of that, just kind of getting into, who is Alex? What is Alex doing now? What is it? What's your forte now?
Well, to answer the first part of it, Alex is an entrepreneur. I remember...
Alex also talks in third person, y'all. I heard that right now. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, brother.
I'm an entrepreneur, man.
Yeah.
And, it took me a while to really kind of like understand that. But through a lot of trial and error and a lot of different types of ventures, I really have kind of come to terms with that, and probably more so now than ever. I'll kind of start from the past, So the way that I know Josh is I was running this clothing brand called Daily Bread that I started with my really good friend Bill Niels. We all grew up in Point Breeze with Mac Miller, and Daily Bread was actually a blog. And so Billy was part of the Most Dope crew, which is, of course, Mac's famous crew. And he had this kind of behind-the-scenes lifestyle blog. It was heavily photography-based. Billy's an amazing photographer. Mm-hmm. So heavily photography-based. And he always wanted to start his own clothing brand. And, he and I were good friends. We'd always hang out at the benches in Squirrel Hill, if anybody remembers the benches.
Yo, I've heard stories about the benches, my guy. That's dope.
Legends.
Yeah, legendary stories. No, you're absolutely correct. This absolutely correct. Yeah.
The benches were just I feel very fortunate that I had a place like that growing up that I could, kind of get into a little trouble, but not too much trouble. So. But
sure.
Yeah, so Billy wanted to turn Daily Bread into a clothing brand, and he came to me, his best friend at the time. He didn't really have a lot of business acumen, and neither did I. But we kind of made it work. We helped kind of get that thing off the ground. Josh was awesome. He helped us print all the little flyers, stickers, all sorts of stuff that we needed. Mm-hmm. And so did Daily Bread for about 10 years. And there was
Hold up. I'm not going to just let you go past that. 10 years.
10 years, man. A
10
decade.
years.
Yeah. 2009 is when the blog started. And May of 2011 was whenever we launched our first 6 T-shirts.
And and take me on that journey real quick. You guys went on tour with Mac.
Yeah.
You guys did other. I mean, that's not the only thing. You guys did other stuff. You eventually opened up a store, but you guys were in mall stores too, right? At some point.
Yeah, at one point we were.
At
one point we were in mall stores.
I seen you on plenty publications as well.
Yeah, we were in a lot of different publications. We had our stuff in lids, and and we were never actually in PacSun.
Okay.
But we sold at Time Bomb. That was the first place that we ever in stores.
Repping on my shirt.
Yeah, most of our stuff though was like direct to consumer, which was awesome. Like we had this really cool little cult following. I remember the furthest place we ever sent a product was Brunei Darussalam, which is this little.
Man, hello, talk that talk, Alex.
That's Borneo.
Talk,
baby.
yeah, talk that talk, man. Talk that talk. You've walked a tremendous journey already. You know, and that's I think that's just the introduction compared to what you probably are going to be doing in this world and what you are doing in this world. So it's just really cool to hear these, because I've seen Daily Bread my whole existence here in Pittsburgh. Really, it's been a heavy thing. It's when you see it in other places around the country, where it came from. It's like it's a stamp here.
Right.
Yeah.
And we hold, it's almost like the Steelers logo. You know what I'm saying? Especially for the urbans. You know what I mean? Especially for the people that I reside with. So, it's real interesting. What made you name it Daily Bread? Let's start there. Where did that come from? The name, when you guys were, in that legendary spot talking that legendary talk, with the benches. How did it come to be?
Well, that was all Billy. I mean, Daily Bread, obviously the connotations with rap, bread, getting money, all that kind of stuff. We were little mischievous kids up to no good. So,
okay.
You can kind of get where the inspiration comes from a little bit. But yeah, that was all Billy, man. Good naming, good branding.
Good naming, good branding.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the first, what did it feel like doing the first publication, like the first act to say that this is real? What was that?
Well, it was a lot of like chaos. It's funny like looking back on it.
Because that was all high school, right?
This was
after.
No, this was right after college.
Oh, okay.
So like right after. So let me think for a minute. So
what you go to college for? Before we start.
Journalism.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
So
now it's starting to make sense. I got you.
I went to school for journalism and I graduated in 2010, and then it was 2011 that we were launching the first 6 T-shirts.
Got you. And so did you get involved once the T-shirt started, or were you involved when it was still a blog?
Well, I was friends with Billy. I mean, I had been around that, and I knew Mac for a really long time.
Right.
I was 5 years older than Mac, so it's not like he and I were like best friends or anything like that.
Sure.
But we were just all in that kind of East End community. We all grew up in Point Breeze together.
Absolutely.
I remember him and little Jimmy Merton running around like causing trouble and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of always around that, but really once it became the brand, once it became the business, that's when I kind of stepped in.
Got it.
Beautiful. Yeah. And what value were you, like, it's one thing to see it. It's another thing to say, you know what, I can add value to that. You know, and how did you add value to the brand?
Well, it's actually really interesting. One of the things I'm kind of going through in my life right now is kind of learning like where I fit the best or where my strongest strengths are in business.
Yes.
And one of those is to have the balls to start something.
Yeah, talk that talk, man.
It's really hard. There's a lot of people that can't handle the level of chaos that comes with a startup. You really got to kind of like get all these candles burning in different places, and you got to keep them burning long enough for the cavalry to come in behind you. And that cavalry is really once you kind of get from like, it's really kind of more than just going from a small business to a medium business, but it's more when you can go from medium to big. Because really it's until you get to that big point that there's enough money and enough activity that you can actually justify hiring somebody who's just a sales manager, who's just a designer, and you're not just like piecing these things together and making it up as you go.
Okay, got you.
And one of my talents is that I can piece things together long enough for somebody else to come in and kind of fill these key roles so that you can get to the next level.
I see. I respect that right there. I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that because starting 1028, that's me still trying to find my identity. I know I have something. I know there's something there, and I'm sticking to, and this is how I kind of navigate this thing. It's like, and I heard it in plenty of these podcasts, if you guys are repeat listeners, finding your core values, the things that you stand for, and making sure whatever I do, I check off the boxes of it fits this, this is why I'm doing it. So even if I continue to do things that way, if I do this that way, and I do this that way, this doesn't work out, it's okay, but this worked. And I start another thing, but it has those same characteristics. What I find out is I develop a tree. Each of the branches, some of them fall off, some of them stay strong, but they all represent the same thing. That's a brand.
Right.
And that's what it feels like right now. I'm trying to create those branches, and some of them are falling off, some of them are staying strong, but I'm holding it together long enough.
Yeah.
What you said, where now I'm looking for a team. I'm understanding what worked in this, and where I need to delegate responsibility so I can create more of these branches or even strengthen the one I have. It's a relentless thing. And hearing you say that after being part of a successful brand and business, and something that was built from an imagination from the ground up. And 10 years strong, and you still are trying to develop those skills and sharpen those skills, actually, is refreshing for me.
Right.
Like, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's inspiring. My fault, man. I just had to, that's my little rant.
I got
that was my
something on
little
that, too.
rant. But that was hard. That was dope.
So for me, going from as small to medium to large, I never got to the point where I was going from medium to large.
Yeah.
I went from small to medium, and I think where I had a failure was I brought too many people in too soon.
Yeah.
And the way that I did it wasn't quite as cohesive as, like, in my head I was like, well, if I bring more people on and we get more work done, we'll have more money.
Right.
But like it never ended up that way.
Yeah.
And then everyone I brought on, like, they're all artists, and I was trying to be like the cool boss. It's like, well, you can come in whenever you want, and work part-time and just do your thing and make it work for you. And kind of I tried to share the flexibility that the being a business owner kind of lends me.
Right.
And as long as I can count on someone, they're reliable, that we could just kind of make it work. But I ended up with people that they didn't have my best interest in mind, and that's okay. It's better to learn that eventually than to not, and I had to kind of let it go and bring it back into just a small business. And now it's just my fiance and I. We do it's just the two of us, and we do more work now, more sales volume, more of everything, and the best quality we've ever done, versus even a year ago. So,
and I think that's absolutely dope, man.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? That's what it's about. It's always reshaping. It's always transforming, and you'll find your form, but it takes a lot of work to get there.
Right.
Now, bringing that back to Alex, man,
please.
Because that was, I think what I got in there was like, understanding how something started, and what do you think maybe you would have done differently starting with Daily Bread, because I know you learned a lot, hopping in there.
Like if you knew everything you knew now, going back.
Yeah, at the beginning of the journey.
How much time you got?
We got some time, and we haven't even really gotten to the story, but just that beginning part, hopping in,
I would have done like damn near everything different. I mean, me and Bill, we were creative. There was some momentum kind of behind us and what we were doing. But it was just a mess. You know what I mean? Like in many forms, art, like within art, a lot of times art is this kind of like fun, happy-go-lucky thing. The spirit of art in and of itself is very much free, similar to what you were saying. Right. But when you're trying to monetize on art, you really got to be a little more tactful and organized about how you do things. Right. I remember me and Billy, it'd be like the night before we had all of our imagery and everything to finalize for the print, we'd still be changing stuff. Yeah. And a lot of this is kind of because Billy is a great artist and he's just always kind of tinkering. It's like it's never done. It's never done. It's never done. That's one of the core things, financial management, like there was, we didn't have great record keeping. Yeah. It just was sloppy. You know, I mean, I don't even
But
know.
you got,
I tell people,
which you got to also admit, you guys were just coming out of college,
Yeah,
first go around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it went 10 years strong as well too. So, but these are things that you would definitely say if you're going to start this up. This is what you want to do.
You got to start with like a good foundation and like good habits and good organization and good communication between you and your partner.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I tell people though, because like I'm always trying to get people to push to the next level, like to find their jumping off point. I'm working with a lot of people. Having the printing business, it gives me an advantage where when you have an idea and you're like thinking about doing a business and then you go get 100 business cards made to see kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like those are the people that I'm talking to.
Right.
So, and like a lot of my customer base is people that are like artists or entrepreneurs and they're just kind of starting out. I mean, my advice to people is just to go for it and you kind of learn and you get more careful later.
Yeah.
Because if you don't start and you want everything to be perfect first, it's never going to be perfect.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So
Can't wait for all
doing
the
it
stars
is
to
so much more important
Yeah.
than doing it right.
Totally.
Although, I mean, obviously there's some aspects that you don't want to land in jail for, doing paperwork wrong or
Sorry,
something
Mama.
like that.
Sorry, Mama.
So you do want to be thorough in things that are important, but for things like finalizing artwork and like people can major in very minor details, and you got to just like put stuff out and start. So I'm to say when you were young and you were starting out, it was sloppy, but I think that's an important element to starting out in your business.
Yeah. Would you change any of that? Like, I mean, like I know it was probably still a grand experience too, right?
I would have changed so many things.
Oh, I got you.
I'm not going to lie to you even a little bit, you know.
Okay.
There was a lot of heartache with Daily Bread too, you know, like I wish that things had gone different. We tried to like sell out a little bit, I think at one point, partially in the pursuit of money, because, when you do something that long and that hard and don't actually make any money, it takes a lot of like the energy out of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was like kind of always my big thing. It was like, how long can we sort of run through this thing? And for it to just not really generate any juice for that level of squeeze. But the thing about Daily Bread, like the good thing about Daily Bread is where I cut my teeth. Like I learned so much about that.
Absolutely.
And it led me to everything else. It also created like, some of my best relationships, some of my best memories. I got to do events and parties through that. Mm-hmm. All kinds of things kind of, it was a fruitful harvest.
Right.
And from there, what happened was I met this guy who I got into house flipping with. His name was Sinke, and he's an incredibly talented designer. And he used to be the lead designer for Young and Reckless, the clothing brand from LA. Ooh. Yeah, and so so he came on board, and that was kind of part of this, like trying to sell Daily Bread out a little bit, not like sell it in a negative way, but just capitalize on it in any way we could. And that didn't really quite work out. So, but he and I started flipping houses afterwards, and the house flipping experience was a really cool one that taught me a lot about construction and design. And it really kind of made me start to appreciate design, and particularly like the design of spaces. So, truth be told, I mean, I never really was a huge clothing guy. Billy was the clothing guy. But the design of spaces, that is something I can really like get into.
All right. This is what I love. I love that. I love that, right? Because I know you said you grabbed a lot of skills from that. What are some of those skills that transferred over to what you're doing now when it comes to design of spaces? And I don't even want to know how did you find out you love it? Because that's a drastic move compared to, the prior.
Yeah. Well, the design element within clothing, like you really see it. I mean, you really start to see what is right, what is aesthetically pleasing, the way that colors kind of sync up with each other, the difference in average photography to great photography.
You developed your eye.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I was not necessarily around that growing up. So seeing all that in Daily Bread was pretty major.
Yeah. And then you start to
heavy.
value, if you're going after a customer that's high end, you need to go after high end. You got to make it look. You got to go after the good photographer. You got to get nicer materials. You gotta do things that are gonna play into that, right? So same thing with the homes. I mean, like I did, I consider myself an artist first, and an entrepreneur second. So today I picked up a photography gig. I was doing real estate photography in McKeesport, and this place was not great looking.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
To say the least.
So we got a guy for you.
Yeah.
We got a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can have that, and you only get to charge a few $100 a month.
Right.
Or you could do what make it appealing to someone that is willing to spend $3,000-$4,000 a month, but you have to put yourself at that level.
Yeah.
And you have to really elevate that experience.
But
you have to be able to see what they're seeing. The person that's going to pay $4,000, they know a lot more about materials than the average person, not than you. But like they know what they're looking for, and if any of that doesn't fit, check all their boxes, and they can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So that put you on working with this partner.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of put you on that level and allowed you to open your eyes to that.
What's your partner's name again?
Cinque.
Cinque.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were Cinque though, when you guys, how did it even come up that let's try this?
Yeah.
That's what I mean, because how did that even?
Did he bring you? He was already doing it, and he kind of brought you on.
No, so
I need this story. I need this story, man.
So he was living in California,
right,
and he was working at Young and Reckless, and I needed a new design, a new lead design person, basically. And so we linked up. We were working remotely for a long time, and he was always kind of talking about the idea of moving to Pittsburgh, but he was really scared about leaving his job. He had a really good job, good money, all that kind of stuff. When things at Daily Bread kind of like fell apart, he was, that was his first passion, was interior design. He loved it, and he was so skilled at it.
Okay.
And I kind of helped give him, I think, like the comfort that he needed to quit his job and take that kind of insane entrepreneurial risk.
Got you.
So
You pushed him versus him pushing you, in a sense.
we pushed each other.
Yeah.
I think one of my kind of great attributes is that I am risk prone. I am willing to take that risk.
Same.
Absolutely.
And I'm really kind of big on exploring like my own psychology and like what makes me tick. And I have ADHD, and people with ADHD, they are more prone to risky behavior. And I do see the way that plays out. I've talked to some of my other friends who are like very organized, structured, all that kind of stuff. And the way that I have lived my life and the way that I've undertaken all these different businesses, and there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that I have started. They just can't wrap their head around it. It almost makes them sick.
Right.
I love that,
Same.
man. I
Same.
love that. So you were built for it's a superpower for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it truly is. A lot of times we look at it's like it's a disability, but it's actually a super ability.
For sure.
Depending if you use it correctly.
I wasn't diagnosed until I was 35.
Oh, wow.
And knowing what I know now and looking back at all the things, I started a skateboard brand when I was 12.
Yeah.
A clothing brand, I was like 14. And like just going and a record label, 18, a music magazine, and screen printing shop, and then things just kind of snowballed, and like it's crazy, like what you're saying, like,
yeah.
and I'm still doing like, oh, I can develop this, I could do that, I could start, let me see where this goes, and like you just kind of do things on the side, and that play into the end goal, whatever the end goal for you. Like for me, printing is an art, and entrepreneurship, like as a whole, like I want to see where this goes in 10, 20, 30 years. But like I'm playing a very long game of like, what do you do? What happens with this? Like I'm playing I like to see how economics like change things. And like, if this happens, then this changes. And so it's a very weird, long running, like interest of mine just to like kind of go full force into this. And I'm very lucky and fortunate that I have tons of people that love working with me and that want to, see this do well, and they like the work that we do. And I'm very proud of the work that we do. It's not that like I don't like printing, but like the goal of mine overall is to help develop entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's two
like,
sides to that coin too.
Of
though.
course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I operate like when you were talking, it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
familiar to me, right?
Right.
But I know because I operate like that, there's a part of the business that needs to be the opposite.
Right. Yeah. Well, you learn how to rein it in.
Yeah, right.
You learn how to rein it in a little bit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and that's why I think you've developed strongly,
Thank you.
especially recently, even since the transition with everything with PGH. I think
Right.
that has been the key,
Right.
is finding the system. Right? Because the creativity is needed, and I believe, Alex, that's like you said, that's the way you operate. It's more of I can do a million different things to keep it afloat, till I can bring someone in to make this thing scale and to
Right.
find the system, right? So, what were some of the benefits of how you operate, and maybe some of the disadvantages of how you operate? You know what I mean?
You mean now or with Daily Bread?
Well, now,
Yeah.
I just say in general of the way that you operate, because
I got that.
Yeah, I mean, so ADHD. It's a hunter's trait. I read a lot about it because I'm pretty interested by it. Apparently, it's an ancient hunter's trait. So you're capable of being in the jungle and being aware of all these little things around you, from the grass to the air to the smell of to the scent of your hunt. And then being able to still focus on like the actual kill of the whole operation.
When it interests you.
Yeah, when it interests you, right?
Yeah.
So like I think about that a lot. I mean, I'm able to do a million things. I'm really good at
Yeah.
kind of seeing these kind of connections between people, like how things fit. One of the hardest things in construction is finding good contractors, and particularly keeping them interested and motivated. Construction's a very sloppy field. People come and go like the wind.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important to like kind of understand what people's passions are within the trades, because you can be a contractor and you can be doing drywall or painting or tile work or kitchens or exterior work. There's all these different things. And if you kind of pair the wrong people up with the wrong thing, they might lose interest.
Okay.
Especially if they don't know how to say no.
Which they never do. Because
Right.
you'll ask them and they'll say, what do you like? Well, I can do everything. I like everything. But
Right.
they don't mean that, you know?
Right.
So being able to sort of see past people's just verbal responses and understand what makes them passionate and what would make them happy, as well as, maintain this organization, keep everything documented, make the customers happy, do the designs. I can just do all of that. But it is hard to maintain it forever. So,
Yeah,
you
it doesn't
need...
sound sustainable.
Yeah.
If it's just if you can do everything.
It's sustainable, but it's like not the right type of life. You
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
Okay.
the right type of life is one where you are a little more balanced and at peace. And if you can do this thing and hold on for like a year, once you get to a certain point income wise, then you start to bring other people in, you slowly take things off their place. Yeah. That's like how you become successful. It's taken me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, when did that become to the point? When did you notice that was the way?
In the past year or two.
Past year or two?
Yeah.
And when did what were some of the things that you applied once you understood it? Like if once you said, you know what, I need to take, because the way we do. The way you operate is just like, okay, this is how I operate. Okay, when was it the point where you said, okay, I need to change? It has to stop. Did something happen in your life where it was like just too much? Because you've been doing this your whole life. Like what clicked?
It's not like one thing happens, but you kind of maintain a certain zen and a certain focus and an understanding bit by bit, and kind of keep the gas on like every day.
Yeah.
And really sort of have these goals about like where you're going. For me though, I got to say, I mean, the big change for me, I think, was my current business partner, who's a guy named Mark. And
Shout out to Mark.
And I met Mark through like a very kind of just random serendipitous way. He was suing his former employer, and he was an installer at this company. that was doing these like handicapped accessible shower installations.
Okay.
And they kind of screwed him over, and he had talked to my lawyer. And my lawyer met him and said, "Oh, I actually know a guy named Alex who's basically doing this same thing." And so we got together and we
doing the home installations, not suing people.
Yeah, okay. We should probably like back up. I feel I should back up for a second. So like,
just throw that out there.
Yeah, like what I do now. Daily bread, house flipping, all that stuff. Like that's not me anymore. Mm-hmm. That is not like who I am. That's not what I do.
Yeah.
And what I do now is the thing that I'm the most proud of by far. What I do is I run an accessible construction company called Three Birds Accessibility that I started about 3 years ago. And then I also have another construction company called Enlightened Remodeling. Enlightened is all the designer kitchen and bath stuff.
Okay.
And we started that in November of last year. So it's about 9 months old at this point. Mm-hmm. So I was running Three Birds for about 3 years. And then I met Mark. And Mark came in and he was that kind of yin to my yang.
Okay.
He is the guy that is rigid, disciplined, wants everything to be structured and orderly, up and down, left and right, and is not soft or loose with the contractors or anything.
Okay.
I have to stop real quick. There are so many parallels.
Yeah.
With all the like everything you're saying, like with everything you're experiencing and the things that I've experienced, it is uncanny.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. And people that have listened to past episodes, if they're hearing it right now and they're like, oh my God, maybe I hope that I portray that, but this is I'm over here just like I'm in it. I'm loving this. Keep going.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked right now.
The lessons that I learned kind of working side by side with Mark was one very much of like people and management and business skills. He was a successful, he ran a large company in Trinidad. He's from Trinidad. He ran a large company in Trinidad where he was sandblasting barges and large like mechanical rigs. Wow. And he grew that company at about 84 employees at its peak. And he was actually kind of getting threatened by and trying to be extorted by gangsters and stuff like that, because that was how Trinidad was, and he had to really be tough to, maintain focus on his work as well as kind of hold off all these like unsavory characters that would just come after him, because it's a small island and whenever anybody makes money, people know.
Right.
He came here for like an oil and gas type of operation job and was kind of disenfranchised with that, and he was just at his core an entrepreneur. And so he was kind of doing this job, working for the home installation company for a while, but his dream was always to start his own thing. And so when we got together, we really did complement each other. We started up Enlightened Remodeling together as well. That's our second business together. Mm-hmm. And this second time around, it was just that much more efficient because we do understand the way that we work together. We understand my strengths, which are very unique, and we understand his strengths, which are also unique.
Okay, man. I think, you unraveled a lot right there. There's a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Especially with bringing in a partner, being able to be cohesive.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important. Because I know a lot of people that can probably be, I wouldn't say the yin to my yang, but they're definitely the polar opposite, and their skill set is probably really, we work together, could be something of a beauty.
Yeah. But I mean, even as a co-host, together we bounce off each other and have a chemistry.
Absolutely.
So I think that there's a partnership where even though we only are doing this every 2 weeks, there's still, some sort of similarities between what he's talking about too.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean. It's like you bring someone in, it's going to affect the flow, positive or negatively.
Right.
And sometimes it's just about learning that person, being able to communicate, being able to express truly how you feel.
Right.
Almost as we move as one.
Right.
Instead of you doing what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing, we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
Together. And it's just making sure those dots connect. Me being in a few also entrepreneurial journeys, working with a few people, sometimes it felt like we weren't working. We weren't working with each other. I was working for someone, and here they were working for me. There was an ego involved. There was these other things, and it was hard to really understand how to navigate in that field. And I'm still struggling with that. You know, when you met Mark, what was that? What was the thing that kind of happened where it's like, oh, we should continue this, you know, because you definitely worked together for the first time, one time, you know, how did that go, and what did you identify in that said, you know what, this is the guy?
Well, it started actually probably from the first time we met. I remember we met at my house. It was during pandemic, and Mark and I both sort of understand the vibration of the universe. You know, we both really believe in the power that, you know, your thoughts really become what you put out is kind of what you get back in. Yes. You know, there's a lot of literature and text out there about the power of positive thinking, the law of attraction. That's like the baseline example of it. But it's an attitude, it's a positive mentality, it's a belief that what you're going to do is going to work and come back to you. You know, it's about not being negative in your thoughts. Because what you're doing, like in entrepreneurship, you know, if you are negative, that stuff will bring you down. And then once you're inside of an organization, that stuff is toxic. You know? Absolutely. The thoughts that you kind of have and the thoughts that you seed within other people in your organization, that stuff does manifest in a very real way. Yeah. So Mark and I talked about that the very first time that we met, and we both sort of understand that. And the fact that he and I were brought together just sort of goes to show that in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, this is uncanny. You know, there's a lot of, I see the parallels. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's really cool.
Speaking of vibrations, tell me what's on your wrist.
Oh, this is Apollo. So Apollo is a device that was created by my former roommate, a guy named Dave Rabin. And so Dave is a psychiatrist and he's a neuroscientist. And he and his wife founded this company called Apollo. And I just got back from Denver, actually, where I was out there working at a psychedelic science convention and we were selling this device. So I could probably say, I've said this probably 5,000 times. I could say 5,000.
Give me your pitch.
Here's the pitch. So basically, Apollo is a wearable health device. And what it does is it sends vibrations to your body that can actually change how you feel through your sense of touch. So if you think about music, music is mathematically tuned to make you feel happy or make you feel sad or make you feel awake or make you feel tired. You're taking the science and the math of that and you're putting it into this wearable device. So this device, it basically, you can control it from an app on your phone. There's 8 different ways that you can use it. So there's 8 different vibrations, some of which range from higher on the frequency scale, things like energize and socialize, which is what I'm on now, and lower down on the scale, which is things like meditate, relax, and go to sleep.
I like, shout out to Apollo.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And how are you involved with them?
Well, as I said, you know, I've been involved in like 1,000 different businesses.
Yeah.
I knew Dave whenever he first moved here for his residency at UPMC. And he developed the concept of this at UPMC, and he was kind of working on it in the lab. I was working for the company for a little bit at the very beginning. I actually named it. And I also convinced 3 of my best friends to quit their very comfortable jobs.
You're good at that.
The startup.
You're good at that, man. Yeah, you got to rally up the troops, man.
You got to rally the troops.
Yeah, that comes with a lot of passion. You got to, when you believe in something, you believe wholeheartly, don't you?
Totally.
There's no like.
You got to be in it.
Yeah.
Once you're in it.
There's no like sense of denial at all.
Yeah.
Right. That's how hard you have to believe in something to really get it going.
Yeah.
And how did you develop that? I'm sorry. No, you know what? I'm going to let you finish this first, and then I'm going to ask, how did that develop? Because I have so many questions, man.
I can imagine it's not easy for you to be sold on something, but once you're in it, you're like, okay, I'm running with this.
Because you seem to research everything too, not just the product, but the mentality behind. Like you've been talking a lot about sociology, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about what triggers us to do this, what nudges us, naturally,
Yeah.
how, and it's truly, what can I say this? It's the science of science, man. It's like we have these ideas that people we are more the same than we are different. And if you can have a basic understanding
Right.
of the things that trigger this or trigger that, or what makes somebody, it's I don't know. There's a lot of little things that are going together. I don't even know how to explain it,
No,
but it
I
just
get
seems
that.
really cool of the way you're not just explaining the product, but the behavior. And you were talking about referencing a lot of books. I can tell you're well read, and a lot of it's probably on things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I've read a ton of books specifically about mindset. And again, like the vibration of the universe. There's this book called Mind Power by a guy named John Kehoe, which has essentially been my Bible. And one of the greatest things I ever took out of that was affirmations.
Affirmations.
Yeah. You want to hear my affirmations
Come
right
on with
now?
it. Come on with it, Alex. Talk that talk to him, man.
So every year, I always try and have these affirmations, and you say these positive phrases out loud, even if you don't necessarily believe in them or they're not true. And they help kind of guide the universe with like where you're going to go and what you're going to kind of get back. So every year you start with 2023 is the best year ever. The universe has my back. Miracles happen every day and they happen to me. Um, all of my relationships grow stronger every day. Money is pouring in effortlessly from every direction. My subconscious mind is my partner in success. My diets are my partner in success. And what that's referring to is my ayahuasca diets. That's a whole other thing we could talk about.
Oh, I would love that.
And my leg is in perfect health. And that's because I also had surgery on my hip about 9 months ago. And that's been quite the process for rehabbing it.
Beautiful. So it's almost like, do you say that to yourself every day?
I try to.
You try to?
I really try to. And I notice the difference when I do, that's for sure.
I felt like it's things like that. It's like when the world feels like it's crushing me, when it feels like I can't breathe, it's stepping on my neck.
Yeah.
I deploy gratitude, and,
Yeah.
and it's kind of in that sense as well. If you once you walk out the door, there's a sign right next to it that says "Do great shit."
Yeah.
And that's not just like a monetary thing. That's not just go out there and accomplish everything for this business. Like what I'm talking about is like being a father. I'm talking about being a husband. Like don't go beyond what you're comfortable with, because that comfort is where or growth dies, I believe. So it's like and I think if you're not growing, you're dead. I think Lauryn Hill said that as well. I think that's something I got off of her, and I want to always be the curious owl in this universe. Somebody that's I want to be wise, but I want to be the curious owl,
Right.
And that's different things. When hearing you, Alex, talk about these certain things, is like, these are the gems that I want to acquire in my life. Always speak it into existence, like move with the intention that what the content I feed myself it matters. What I say to myself.
Absolutely. What we're putting into our brains, whether it's consuming content online or reading books or just our own thoughts, that's all very similar to something that you could see and taste. When you're putting food in your body, you're digesting that, and then it either has a positive or negative effect on you, on your physical body. But like, I think what you're saying is that all of these vibes, so to speak, like that all plays a role in how your mind is digesting the input.
Yeah, like what you're talking about, John Kehoe talks about this a lot, and
Yeah.
so the way he describes it basically is you have your conscious mind, which is interpreting reality, talking to people, and you have some control over your conscious mind. And it's basically the gatekeeper to your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is almost like this battery that is kind of vibrating, and it's connected to the infinite universe. It's connected to everything.
Yeah.
And you do have the power, excuse me, you do have the power to modify and control your conscious mind so as to impact your subconscious mind.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, you'd be amazed at what comes out of it. So like a big part of like with affirmations, you say something like 2023 is the best year ever. Well, how? You don't necessarily know how it's going to be the best year ever, but by putting this out, your mind will start to pick up on the patterns and the things that it actually sees in the real world to help you kind of come to that conclusion.
It'll help you fill in the gaps.
It helps you fill in the gaps, yeah.
This is
It
like
really works.
It's like the catalyst to the placebo pill, right? Is that what it's called? Yeah. So it's like, and I know I've heard stories about that. You know, doctors would. Speaking of that, how about let's talk about the pandemic? So when they created the vaccine, right?
Yeah.
They tested about 10,000 people.
Yep.
Right.
10,000 people, and they got, I think, what was it? It was, I think they got 7,000 people said that they were sick after taking it.
Yeah.
And it was baffling to them, right? Because they only gave out, I believe, 1,000 actual vaccines, and the rest, the 9,000, were placebos.
Right.
And they didn't just say they were sick. They actually, and you know what? And let me say this is a speculation because I don't think the numbers were correct, but let's just say allegedly, just so people watching, because I don't know the exact numbers. I don't want to just be putting this out there. But the thing is that, like, they gave out 10 pills. 9 people said they were sick. And but 9 of they only gave out 1 actual real pill, and the 9 of them were placebos.
And they would actually get sick because your mind is that strong that
Absolutely.
it can control. And if you really believe that it's going to make you sick, and you get sick because of it.
And
Absolutely.
And actually, you know, I actually used that when I was going through. When I was 19, I was diagnosed with cancer and spindle cell sarcoma, and no, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, truthfully.
Right.
And I always think the worst things that happen to you always have the best impact on your life, right? Those are the things that when you gather the gems. But I made a conscious decision. I don't know how I did this. I was young, but I told myself there was no way I'm going out like that. That was the mindset of me. There was no way of that. I'm going to live every day as if it's the best day of my life. So if I was to die today, I die on the best day of my life.
Yes.
But I'm going to keep on moving with this mindset. I don't want your pity. I'm going to move like there's nothing wrong with me, because truthfully, I'm still here. So there's really nothing wrong. You know what I mean? And so I would still go out to parties. Yeah, I was bald-headed and stuff like that, but I didn't stop doing what I would naturally do. But, you know, don't get me wrong, my health would kind of prevent certain things, but it made me push farther. And because I was moving like that, I've seen a lot of people that were actually in the same situation as I was, and it was unfortunate that they didn't seem to progress the way I was progressing. But the doctor always told me the best medicine I had was my mindset.
Absolutely.
It was you know, when, you know, and I'm telling you, you know, moving as if I was already well. And when I reached it, it was bittersweet. I thought I was going to feel like better, but I just felt like I did before because I was just moving as if I, you know,
had beat it.
Yeah, already beat it in my mind. And I learned, you know, and I still need to embody that. I don't embody that as much as I used to, but there was no other option. There was no other option. It was kind of the way I feel like when you talk about, if you want to start a business, how you can get those guys is to really not just buy in, but truly believe in the vision, is that there has to be no denial in my mind. There has to be a point where this is what it is, and nothing else matters. This is, and you talk with, like, there is no way that this is going to, even if it goes south, I don't care, because I'll make it go north. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you have to lock in on things. And it just this conversation just reminded me of that. That was wild. But it was a thing.
What year was that?
I was 19, so it was 2005.
2005 is the best year ever, right?
2005 was the best year of my life.
Right.
It was the best year of my life,
and
for sure.
And
it's the thing that started my life. It was, my life started then.
And it's interesting how you can see how, like, you know, when you pick an affirmation like that, you don't know how you're going to, like, fill it in. You know what I mean? But if you're going through that year of cancer, you're saying 2005 is the best year ever. You know, a lot of people might look at you and be like, you're crazy. You have fucking cancer, you know?
Yeah.
But It's all kind of in your mindset. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was 5 years of that fight, and it was it was till this day, man. Like, I don't regret none of it. And don't get me wrong, of course you don't want to go through it again, but I'm telling you, man, the gems I picked up in that time, like, it shaped everything. It shaped everything. It made me appreciate the day, because you know, statistically, you don't know if tomorrow is going to come, so you just make sure you cherish today the best as much as possible. And that is the way you should live life. Like, why wait till you die to live your best life? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I created a piece called, I seen it this weekend, called "The Grave Above the Sky" is the title of it. And what it was it was this podium, and you had like two demons here and like two angels on top of the podium. It was like 4 instead of 3, but the two angels were up here, and above it there was a line, and it had the grave, and then it had the sky below it. You know, there was the line, and it said grave up here and sky below it. And what that represents to me is that, you know, a lot of times we think of, once we die, we go to, you know, the paradise, and that means the sky is above the grave. But to me, what it means to me when it say the sky below is below instead of above the line, what it means to me is, like, I'm not going to die to live my best life. I'm going to live my paradise here on the ground. So I'm not going to wait till I go into the grave to go above the sky. Like, I'm gonna live it like this right now. Like, I'm just gonna. It's so hard to really kind of capture it because it was so long ago. But I hope you kind of get it. Like, if you're listening, just remember this. Like, this is your paradise, and if the one that goes beyond, okay, that's great. But live it like it's now.
Yeah.
You know, prepare now.
You can make this heaven on earth if you create it, and you have to put effort into it, and it takes work. But if you're willing to put that effort in and create that mindset, then you can have that paradise here, and then maybe there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. You know, like, we got one of these. Absolutely. Okay. That's what it is. There was a saying, and I'm gonna let you get back to it, Alex. After this one, we all in this now.
And you could ask us stuff too. Don't forget that.
But there's a saying that says, you know, one day, and this happens to everyone. I believe I said this on here before. One day, this happens to everyone, that your life is going to flash before your eyes. It's going to flash before your eyes. It's going to happen to every last one of us. It is your responsibility to make sure it's worth watching. You know what I mean? So, like, get to it. That's your responsibility. You know, make a magnificent movie. You know what I mean? And put everything you got into it. And my hell to me is dying with regrets. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's hell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I try a lot of things. I shoot the shot here and there, but I can't live with the what if thing. Mm. That kills me, bro. That kills me. What if? I'm sorry. Forget that. Right. I'm not doing that. What if I didn't try? Like, no, I'm good. And maybe that's not for everybody. But like you said, the risk thing, I'm telling you, man, comfort is where dreams go to die. Right. You know, like, you got to be, I love being uncomfortable. Yeah, I have to now, because I just realized that's where all the gems come from, bro. Right. Yeah. It comes in the pursuit and going beyond what your comfort zone is. So if you're not willing to do that, that's okay, but just accept what you got. Right. You know, and if you do want to do that, it's going to be scary. It's going to be the most stressful and all these other things, but you got to be grateful for it, man, because you only get that when you're going for it. It only happens when you're going for it. Like, if you're not going for it, you're not going to feel it. And if you feel it, God damn it, you're going for it. Congratulations. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at, man.
Yeah, and we're only here for so long. Like Corey and I have this running joke, but people ask me how I'm doing. I tell people it's the best day of my life, just like yesterday and the day before. Yeah. Like, I try to embody that and just realize that, like, I'm present in today, and I'm going to make it the best because it's here I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. And in order to make tomorrow better, if today's the greatest and I could build on that, then it can only go up from there.
Yeah, right. So Corey,
Yeah.
let me ask you something.
Come on with it, man. Come on with it.
So how do you that experience that you went through?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the ripples of that in your current life? How did that affect who you are now and in work and business?
Oh man, what I can say is that because of those things, when something does happen, and I get stressed out,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can't go forward, man, this is small things to a giant. You know, imagine
right.
being, oh man, imagine being 19, you see your friends going outside, and you're strapped to a machine pumping chemo in your body, right? And you got to smile. You know, because your mom's standing right across from you, and you know that you going through it means she's going through it. And a lot of times I feel like I'm all she got because my brother's been locked up, so I'm the man in the house as well, right? So when I have to remind myself when these things are happening, like this is, don't get me wrong, it's pressure, but real pressure is life or death situations. It made me realize that. Yeah, these things are issues, but as long as there's breath on my lips, I can change it, you know?
Yeah.
But imagine if you don't have control if there's no breath on your lips or not.
Yeah, right.
You know, if one thing just goes south and I don't have any air to breathe to change this situation. If I'm here, no matter, I can lose all of this and I still have $1 million in my mind.
Right.
Because this is just a residual of my actions, you know, and I and my mindset and my ability to create. I can lose everything and be comfortable because I know that they can't take the one thing that no one can take it. My experiences, my mindset, my confidence in myself to know I can overcome something that I'm statistically not supposed to overcome.
Yeah.
You know, this is stage 4. This is, you know, tumors up and down the body. This is, you know, they introduced me to a guy that survived this that had no legs and had a smile on his face, and he was working. He wasn't sitting on the shelf, you know, and then you would, you know, as I had my little pity party when I was 19, I would sit down and watch the St. Jude commercials, bro, at nighttime when you're up, and these kids are going through it 10 times worth, brain tumors, and they smiling, riding on tricycles. You think I had the nerve to say, oh, poor me?
Right.
Fuck that, man. No. These kids can smile. So what do you mean I can't? No, I'm going to go through this with integrity. I'm going to go through this with I'm gonna give it everything I got because I'm not going anywhere. And if I do, you will remember this smile, and I'm gonna go out with integrity. So that's what I learned. I learned how to, even through the pressure, even through the trials and tribulations, those aren't really problems. Those are opportunities to do something great.
Yes.
And when I go out, I do great shit.
Yeah.
That's what it says right there on that blue paper. Every time I go out, you know, this is an opportunity. So when you got a problem that's coming to face you, I'm telling you, it's nothing but an opportunity to collect gems. It's nothing but a possibility for you to overcome your previous self to become the better future self. You know, so every problem has a gem in it. So I say, bring them on, because I know I've fought the biggest one already. So the rest of them, you know, I don't know. The rest of them just don't seem so big anymore.
Everything. I like to say that everything comes in waves, but every day or everything kind of like builds on top of the last. So, like I had all these experiences in my life with different businesses and relationships, and each thing, what I have now wouldn't be what it is without those. You know, some people might regret them, whether they're businesses or relationships or whatever. But for me, I make a very conscious choice not to, and to, see everything for what it's worth and kind of take it for what it's worth, but only make sure I'm not overvaluing and romanticizing different experiences more than what they were worth. So there's a balance between all of that, but with my experiences, with your experiences, and like for everyone here, you wouldn't have what you're doing today without, for Corey, you did security, you did your art, you did, managing a art studio, you did there's a million things that I could list going all the way back to selling Tootsie Rolls. And
those Fruities,
right,
actually, there were Tootsie Rolls,
right.
There was Fruities,
And
oh man, that was
without that, then you wouldn't have, without Shovel and Snow, then you don't have, it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. So if your first business was just doing construction, you'd be going through all those same problems you went through with Daily Bread now.
Yeah.
And you would, know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's so important to just continue doing, riding the wave, figure out what works, take it in stride, and you're going to have failures, you're going to learn from it, you're going to have a smile on your face, and you're going to continue. And that is what makes, I think that's what makes us who we are, and that's why we're here and we're doing this.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's interesting, I'll be honest, I don't really like talking about Daily Bread.
That's fair.
Yeah. I really don't like talking about Daily Bread because it is something that kind of stings a little bit. You'd asked me earlier on in the podcast how I felt about what I would have done differently, and it's that list just feels so long sometimes. But it is true that I wouldn't be here without this. And I remember one time I got a tarot card reading, and we were talking about Daily Bread, and there was this card that came up that was essentially kind of saying reflecting on Daily Bread as a fruitful harvest, because it did lead to all these other things and these lessons and these really good relationships. And so yeah, it's good to kind of be reminded of that sometime.
Yeah, and when you're in it, you might think what am I doing here? Why are we going through this? What is, it's so easy to not be able to see outside of that.
Yeah.
But when you can get into that big picture, and then now when you're experiencing things and you realize, all right, I'm going through this thing, and this might, not be the greatest, but I'm going to have my positive affirmations. But but knowing that that's going to build onto the next thing, and you have to do it once. I think a reason that a lot of people start
or more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to start once.
Oh, that's a good one.
Once you figure out,
you only have to start once.
Oh, look at
That's
you.
a gem.
Okay. That is a gem.
That's a gem.
my buddy Mike Lee, we can thank him for that one.
Yeah.
He was telling me, and this was probably 15, 20 years ago. He's like, so many people that have multiple businesses, so many people that start a business have multiple businesses because once they realize how easy it is to do something, and once you believe in yourself that you can create and this opportunity for yourself, so many people are stuck in this idea that this job security, someone else paying you a paycheck is job security, and that's so false because you're counting on them more than you're counting on yourself because you're trusting them to continue working. And so it baffles my mind. But once you figure that out, that you can create your own value and give your value to other people, and they'll, you have to find your way to get them to respect you, and it's a challenge to create this, way about yourself where you're going to be taken seriously. There's lots to learn, but once you do it and you figure out how the basics work, what things you got to plug in to make X, Y, Z, then you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, I mean, I could try to think of any type of business in the world, and as long as I know what the product is and get an understanding of how it's done, I can make a draft of a business plan for it. Yeah. Anything. If I wanted to start a catering company, I'd be like, all right, well, who are my customers going to be? What kind of products are we going to sell? Who are we gonna, there's just, and then your mind starts to spin, and these are fun things that I think about at night when I can't sleep. Yeah. Okay, what would I do if I was trying to start that business? How would I do that differently? And like, there's no end in sight. Like, and I mean, I'm doing what I'm doing because I really like where I'm at, but there is so much opportunity. And for you, where you're at, I don't, my hope is that you continue doing this for a long time and it makes you happy, but I don't think that there's any world where this is the only thing you ever do.
100%. And I've started
Same,
and I can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get a taste of it, man, it ain't no going back.
Right.
It's really, don't get me wrong, like, I'm all about transformation if other things present themselves.
Yeah.
But right now, where I stand in life,
Yeah.
bro, there's no other way I want to live.
Right.
Like, it's just like, you know, it is the hardest thing in the world. Yes, it is. But it is the most beautifulest thing as well. And a lot of times the thing that feels, you know, you ask me, what did I learn from the experience, you know, going through cancer? I learned how to fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, how to fight for something. And that's what, you know, a lot of times, you know, starting a business, that's what it is. It's fighting for the right to have, for that my idea is worthy. You know, it feels like fighting for, making sure, like, I thought of this thing and now I have to bring it into the world, right? And I'm fighting for it. You're fighting for it to have its own life, its own lane, you know, to create something for it. And it's a battle, man, but I'm telling you, there ain't no other place I'd rather be than that ring. You know, and that's, you know, I think I've learned that from it, that I don't give up.
Yeah.
Even maybe when I should. But I feel like there's never it's probably not the right thing, but I feel like there's never going to be an opportunity where I can. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's really tough. So I just got to watch what I love. And when I love this, and I love hard, man. And if I love something, I'm fight till I can't fight no more.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'll fight again. Because I probably won't stop. It's just how it works. But yeah, I learned how to fight. Yeah.
The worst thing that ever happened to me was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me. So maybe we'll save that for a part 2.
Oh, absolutely. We got to bring you back on, man. Your energy is your energy's there. And I don't even think we scratched the surface, man. You might have to be 101.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that.
My mind's spinning already.
Yeah, I already know. I got chills a few times. I already know when you. I do this sometimes. I think that's the product.
Yeah.
So crazy because I was like, it ran through my head. Oh, that's it. Mm-hmm. That's why I love this, because it creates those moments. Yeah. And that's what I want to capture. And it's so wild that when I was looking at you when you were going like this, it hit. It hit.
My buddy from California, he started listening like 2-3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Hey man, what should I, you know, what podcast episode should I listen to?" I made him a playlist of like my best ofs, and sent him a link, and I, you know. He hits me up a couple days ago, and he's like, "Hey," and him and I, we were business partners at one point, and we're very good friends. When I go out to California, he's one of the top few people that I'll see aside from family. So, the fact that I've been doing this since 2018 and he's just catching on now is, I'm thrilled that he's listening. Yeah. And that he's taking it seriously. He's like, "Hey, I listened to like 3 or 4 episodes. Oh, goodness. Really like it, and you know, I'm going to be coming out to Chicago. Any chance that you'll be kind of towards that area?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "I'm like, but you can always come to Pittsburgh." And he's like, "I'm thinking about it." So I got someone from California thinking about coming here to be on it, just to be on the podcast, because he's like, I really like what this is and how it's creating and whatever. And he asked me if, you know, his thing would fit the criteria. It absolutely does. I love what he's doing. He's an amazing person. So that would be this space that we're in. I'm gonna transition this into my thankful exit. Okay. So we are so proud and thankful that we are able. I speak for Corey and I, able to do this, and probably Larry as well, this podcast, and have people that are interested in listening, and you know, we're thankful that we get to do this. I feel like a lot of what I'm thankful for is that I get to do most of the things that are in my life, and there's not much that I have to do, because I've put a lot of effort into creating a life where it's filled with things that I get to do. So it's a mindset shift, and of course there's parts of my days that aren't my favorite, but you learn to love each little thing and part of the process that it brings, because each thing builds onto the next. So part of that is this podcast, and it does take time and money and lots of other things, but for what we get out of it and what we hope that the people listening get out of it, it is by far absolutely worth it. We're coming up on 100 episodes, and if I've spent $100 on an episode, that's $10,000, and I think that I've gotten so much more value out of that it doesn't even scratch the surface of what I think it's worth. So I'm so thrilled to be doing this. I'm thankful that I have a co-host, and
I'm thankful to be here as well with
guests.
you, my friend.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And, it's just a great thing to be part of. So thank you for listening to Thoughtful Discussions. My sign off is that if you want to follow me personally, the best way is on my Instagram, Josh Snyder 86, and that's Snyder with an I. Check me out from there, and you'll find all the things that I do: PGH Printship, Thoughtful Discussions, podcast, and I'm also a volunteer board member for PGH Museums. And I have lots of wonderful friends that I enjoy doing interviews with. So I'll let you go next, and then we want to get yours.
And before we tag off, we got to do the one question real quick.
Okay, go for it.
One question. Yo, Alex, if you can talk to the Alex that started this whole journey, right? Let's go to the Alex right after college. If you can talk to that person, if he was sitting right across from you and you had one thing that you can say to that person, what would that thing be? What would you say to Alex?
Fuck, I don't even know.
Yeah, that's a heavy one, bro.
It's a hard one.
Take it in for a second.
Would you recommend a book or
I was
literally
literally actually about to say exactly that. I think I would. I was really angry, I was kind of angry and I was pretty lost. And I think what I would probably say to myself is that and one of the things that always felt so sad to me growing up is I would see somebody around me that wanted to be a doctor or be a lawyer or, wanted to be a musician. That's a good one. I mean, I was around tons of musicians. My family's all musicians, all this type of stuff. And these are people that I looked at them as having come out of the womb and had a certain calling in life, and that calling kind of gave them purpose. I was looking for purpose pretty much my whole life. I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And, I would probably come and tell myself that, you actually do have a purpose, and you kind of got more wind at your sails than you even realize, and you are an entrepreneur. Doing all these different things that you're doing is part of your purpose, man, and you're actually pretty good at it. So keep your head up, put a smile on your face and think positive, and you'll be all right, kiddo.
Absolutely, man. That's the gem. That's the gem right there, man. It ties everything into one,
I want, if anyone's listening, if you could leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening with, and just give us a few of your affirmations, if you have any, or if you want to create some for yourself, leave a comment and say what those are for you. And we are it's a fun thing to kind of do. I'll leave some as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, this is Corey Ochai. I run 1028 Podcast. You can find me at 1028 Podcast on Facebook, on Instagram. I even have a Twitter. I'm not too active, but I need to get more into that. As well as if you want to follow me and actually see some of my artwork, see some of the other things I got going on, follow me at MUVE078. That's Move 78. One of these days, I'm going to tell you. I think I told them the story of Move 70.
We got it.
You guys go find that podcast.
Probably episode 78.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd have been awesome. But besides that, though, Go out there, do something beautiful. The world's counting on you, man. This world is a blank canvas. Each of us grab a paintbrush and let's strike away and paint together and create this masterpiece. You dig? That's
Absolutely.
what we're going to do. But Alex, before we do go, you go and give them your handle.
Where can people find you
at? Yeah, where can they also get your services done at? You know what I mean? Because that's what I want to say. Where can they find you for real?
Yeah, so the real me is Three Birds Accessibility, which is threebirdsaccessibility.com. That's all handicapped accessible construction. So we do lots
and that's the number 3 or the
number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, the number 3 BIRDS accessibility.com. We do a lot of handicapped accessible construction, which is a lot of tub to shower conversions and ramps for disabled people. And then Enlightened Remodeling, which is enlightenedpgh.com. That's all the cool, fun designer kitchen and bath stuff. And then I'm not super active on Instagram, but you can look me up there at Alex Avakian 412.
Nice.
Shout out to Alex, man. Thank you so much for coming. You definitely got to be a second offender, man. We have quite a few of them that need to really come back. This is one where I don't think we scratched the surface.
No, we're good.
Really, like I really think this is. Josh, looking at you, man. You know what I mean? This is one of those ones for me. So
we can do a whole podcast on ayahuasca.
I got so many questions. Really to untap. We're gonna talk.
See you next
All right,
time.
guys, we will see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Josh, you know how this is, man. Again, another one. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't reference my guy, but you know what I mean? This has been a beautiful journey, and we're going to continue going forward, guys. Stay tuned.
Peace.
Peace.